Hey guys, welcome back to our real scenario. Shout out to all our real lovers out there. We are happy to be back for another episode.
We love y'all so bad. We love y'all real bad.
Real bad.
You like how I did that?
Yeah, I like that.
Yes, the real love goes both ways.
It does.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Doing well. Life is well. Can't complain. It's still summer, so.
Yes, I wanted to bring the summer vibes today.
I was about to say, you're very colorful.
Yes, I wanted to bring the summer vibes.
Yeah.
I love summer minus the really blistering weather, but I love like all the range of color and just flirty clothes and lightweight clothes. Yes. You know, I'm a girly girl that likes to dress. So
my wife does not like color.
No, your wife does not like color.
So therefore, I have to adapt with very monotone, very colorless palette of clothing.
You like more mute. Their colors, it's just more muted.
Earthy.
Yes, more earth tones.
Not a lot of bright. But I'm dark skinned, and you know how like
it is
color be popping on.
It does, man. One thing about that melanin with the cliche from our last episode, the darker the berry,
sweeter the juice.
Boom. Boom.
Just like that.
Slide on a little pop of color, Dre. It's okay. I think Brie will be all right.
She'll be all right.
Yeah, you just can't hang it up in the closet.
No.
Don't let
That's
her see
the
it.
issue. That's the issue. It got to be in a drawer stuff somewhere. I just can't hang it in the closet.
Yes.
Or I can't be around her because we got to compliment each other and she don't got no color. So
Got it.
But when she wears it, she looks good too. So I don't get it. I don't know.
Yes. Color looks so good on black people.
do.
No shade. It look good on all y'all, but it hit different on us.
Hip hop. But thank you for coming and listening to another episode of Real Love Scenario. As we always say, there's a lot of different ways that you can support us creators. Make sure to like, subscribe to everything that we're doing if you're watching on the visual. Also, like I said last episode on the podcast, there's a little button at the top. Just click follow.
Usually on the right side.
Yeah, it's usually on the right side of the top. Please click that. Like that helps out a lot for us.
Yeah.
And also, rate our podcast 5-star review. We appreciate that. And if you leave a review, we'll read your review here on the show. So
yes, and share
too.
Share.
Free to you means a lot to us.
Yes.
But we love our real lovers, and I'll hop into our real lover review or comment for the day. So this comes from on YouTube now. They just do usernames and they don't do like the names anymore. So it's like why Frank Silo. Let me.
Okay.
Getting old. Let me see. Open it up.
Why I gotta come with the old mouth? Getting old, come with the.
Grab my glasses. I see one person. I was like, I hope I don't ever get to this point of old. Like I understand, I might need glasses someday. But somebody had the hanging ones that go up attached in the middle.
Can't take them off. That like pop out.
Yeah,
and
they
then
take
you
to the
click
middle
them.
and you click them back in.
Wow.
Like they had them just hanging, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you're blind when you got to leave them on your neck.
On your neck.
Yes.
Yeah, I get LASIK contacts before I do that. But why Frank Cillian, 27, this is for our Dating a Man with Financial Struggles episode, said this was such a mature conversation. This had so many gems. This helped me so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome so much.
Well, we're glad we can help you out. Thank you for writing that review or that comment. And we're glad that we helped you.
Yeah.
Short, sweet, simple, to the point.
It. Gets the job done.
Yes, it does.
Gets the job done.
Yes, it does. Do you want to go to our real life love scenario?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is a post that went viral on social media on multiple blogs. Saw it on the Neighborhood Talk, but it's a bride. She's getting married. Most important day that a lot of people feel like.
Yes.
Very special day full of love. And it sounds like they went through premarital counseling.
Yes.
So you would have thought this might have been addressed.
Well, the pastor said it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe she called out sick that day. But basically a bride refuses to say wedding vows or the wedding vow about obeying your husband. And she said, we ain't talk about that in counseling.
And the pastor said, yes, we did.
Yes, we did. But that part in the wedding vow where it says obey your husband, she was like, nah, I'm not saying that. And it came off as like a joke. People were laughing, but she was kind of really like, nah, like, I'm not saying that.
And he even said, do you want me to say it again or you want to move past it? She said, yeah, let's just move past it.
And the husband was kind of like, it was like an awkward, like, okay.
Too late now.
But before we dive into this, I just want to give like kind of a history on wedding vows and where they come from. So in the time of the Roman Empire, this is 17 BC to 476 AD. So this is before Christ. The lower classes had free marriages. The bride's father would deliver her to the groom, and the two agreed that they were wed and would keep the vow of marriage by mutual consent. Wealthy Romans, though, would sign documents listing property rights to publicly declare their union was legalized and not a common law. This was the beginning of the official recording of wedding vows. So what they were referring to with the bride is normally I take thee to be my husband, to have and to hold this day for better, for worse, for richer, or for poor, in sickness and in health, to love, cherish, and to obey till death do us part, according to God's holy ordinance. And thereto I give me thee my troth. As you know, it's older saying, but it's like this traditional wedding vow that we all come to know.
Yes.
So my question is, first, do you think she was wrong in her wanting to go past it? I also want to know, do you think traditional wedding vows are outdated? And when you get married, will you do things traditionally?
First question, was she wrong for not wanting to say that in her wedding vows? I would say yes. I think it was just kind of cheesy, especially because it's your wedding, right?
Yeah.
And so in general, you should know what's happening. You are giving your officiant the guidance to how they will marry you, and or vice versa. Like if you hire an officiant, it is likely because you have witnessed them marry people before, or they walk you through like what that is going to look like when you're standing up there, just because that whole experience can be vast. Some people light candles together, some people pour sand together, some people jump the broom, some people don't. So that part is, I think, able to be fully customized before the wedding.
Yes.
So therefore, if you had an issue with that vow, perhaps you should not have opted to have the traditional vows said at your wedding.
Yes.
So if you didn't alter that, why alter it in the moment? So that's the first thing. Just logistically, you could have scrapped it pre-wedding. But then two, I think it's weird to say no to that when, if this is a person, and I'm putting myself in her shoes, which I know sometimes can be a dangerous thing to do, but if I'm putting myself in her shoes, I am marrying someone that I am okay with being obedient to. I am entering into a relationship with someone that, in general, based on how that vow is written, to love and to cherish and to obey, I am okay with that. This is a person that I trust. This is a person that I am joining my life with them. It does not mean that in a blanketed way, I will always have to go with any and every single thing that they say. But in general, when he is being obedient to God, if you're using those vows because they're spiritually based, if he is being obedient to God, then and I can be obedient to him. Like, yeah. I don't see what the big deal is. I think we get really caught up on words that sound controlling sometimes because you are placing and projecting the trauma that you know of connected to obedience. But if I say, hey, Dre, can you grab me a water? And you grab me a water, you're technically being obedient. I asked you to do something and you didn't. But I wouldn't say, hey, Dre, can you go be obedient and get me a water? Because people have made that sound like a bad thing. Very and true. I want to marry a man that, in general, I'm okay with listening to him and saying, yeah, sure, let's do that. Or, okay, babe, no problem. I also want to marry a man that understands that the vows go both ways. We are both agreeing to this, not just I'm being obedient to you, but you're not being obedient to me. So I just think that that's just weird to reject. And then your last question is, when I get married, not if, when I get married, will I do things traditionally, like at my wedding with vows? Yeah. I think that'll be a combination, because I do want to give my own vows to my husband that deviate slightly from those. Yeah. But in general, yes, I like the traditional vows.
Traditional vows. Okay, I think that was great insight for sure. And I want to read the definition of what it means to obey, just to give people a little context.
Yes, I love a definition.
Obey is a verb. Means to comply with a command, direction, or request, and also has to behave in accordance with a general principle. So it's like somebody requests you to do something, you do it. That's technically being obedient.
Yes.
To that person.
That's it.
And it's not necessarily anything bad or mean or controlling or anything of that nature. And so my feeling about this is, number one, a lot of things that you do when it comes to weddings are ceremonial, and they're based off of tradition and how things have always been done. When it comes to being married, you don't need to say any vows to get married.
Nope.
So those words that you say when you are getting married, that's why they always say it's a commitment before God or a vow before God, because technically by the law to get married, those vows don't need to be said or committed to.
No.
You can take as many wives as as many lovers as you want in a marriage. That's up to you. Like, and that's one thing that Rhonda has spoke about before, is that before you enter into a relationship, you need to discuss what marriage means to you. What does that look like? What is the framework? What is the dynamic of that? So I think that her, like you said, did you call it corny, tacky?
Corny.
Okay. I think it was corny too, because it's like, truly those words, it's all ceremonial anyways.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not like, there's people who are divorced who did say that, you know what I'm saying? And there's people who are still married who did, like, so it's like, just keep going with the thing. I do. Yes, yes. Cool. It's not like if your husband asks you to do something, you like, well, I didn't commit to that when we got married. So I ain't got to do it because I said I wouldn't do it. And it's like, that's just so cheesy.
And the vows don't encompass every single facet of a relationship. No, it doesn't.
No. So, I mean, that's the thing, is just tradition is very interesting. And like I said, a lot of things with how we do weddings now is just very traditional.
Yes.
And it's based off of like how things have been done. Brie and I chose to go an untraditional route with our wedding.
Okay.
We still had our ceremony. We still had, my mom was the one who married us because my parents took us through marriage counseling. And that sounds what happened in this situation. And that's typical of a lot of situations, that if somebody takes you through premarital counseling, if they are a pastor, they tend to marry you after doing it. And a lot of people who are pastors, if you want them to marry you, they'll say, well, I have to do the premarital counseling first. So my wife and I did that. But outside of that, we didn't have traditional groomsmen and bridesmaids, and it didn't show up in the same way. Like, there weren't people standing next to us, type of thing. We didn't do the thing. I am
definitely not having a bridal party.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I want nothing to do with that.
And there's nothing that all the elements that are fun about it, you can still keep without adding the stressors. So like for my quote unquote groomsmen, those are like all my boys, current and past. And it was like, yo, just wear a black suit. We ain't gotta go coordinate rentals.
No, you gotta get alterations based on what I want you to do.
Like, yo, I have a video from my wedding that went dope with all the dudes, because it was like, yo, all the guys are in black, all the women are in white. Wear your own style. And you see like everybody's style, like how they like swagged it out. Like some people got the bow tie. Somebody went tieless and the open chest hairs out and the jewelry. Some people went full ties. Some people went vests. Some people went like, and it was dope. And it was like, yo, this is like, I didn't have to stress about outfits or what it looks like. We don't got to stress about positioning or what, do this or do that. It's like,
gotta match you up to the bridesmaid with the height, and should you really be with your spouse? Because sometimes your friends that are your bridal party, they're actually married together. It's gosh.
It's like all the tradition. Brie and I didn't do the tosses. We didn't do like
I don't want the toss either.
The dances. I mean, like the mother. Like a lot of things we didn't do, and that's not to shake anybody from doing it, but it's just going back to what Rhonda said. It's shaping this thing of how you want it. It's a day that you're curating. Like marriage by law, which is what it was created initially to be, is going in with a witness and signing a certificate.
That's
the extent of what it takes to get married.
Yes.
And you don't even have to go in anywhere. You could do it at home if somebody is ordained to do that or is licensed to marry you.
Yeah.
It's a very easy, very uneventful process. Now, weddings have become this moment of celebration, and there's tradition built around that. But that all it is tradition. It has nothing to necessarily do with the actual legal process of being married. Right. So you can make it whatever you want to make it.
That's right.
And I would suggest that people do that when it's at your time, when it's the times you want to do this. Number one, it's all about you. People will try to make it about them, but this is a big party that you are financing.
Yes.
Most of the time. You're supplying the food, the drinks, the venue, the experience.
Yes.
Stop letting people tell you how you need to do that.
Please.
Do your own party.
Please.
Oh, you need to do this. We need to have how would people feel if there was no like flower toss? That's like a big part of the wedding. It's not what I want.
Shout out to my mom for being like, well, when you get married, it's going to be people that I want there. Mom, I love you, girl, but this is my day. This is my day. You can have whoever you want at your wedding. Okay. This is not your day. So I'll take your people into consideration if they happen to be on my list already. Exactly. Otherwise, I don't know what to tell you, mommy.
That's real. And and you should take that approach when it comes to getting married. So my overall thought, like I said, just a little tacky. Like I said, I've been married. We did things untraditionally, and I would encourage people to just do what feels right for you, what makes sense for you. But don't fall into the trap of doing something else, doing something for somebody else. Yeah. Make sure if you're doing it because you want to do it. Yeah,
and the only one little piece I add to that is focus more on the marriage than the wedding. The wedding matters. It's a celebration. If that's what you want, it's cool. But make sure that all that you're doing, all that you're putting into this wonderful celebration, that you truly actually have something to be celebrating. That your marriage and this union is something that you all have taken the right amount of time, the right amount of consideration, the right amount of conversations to be putting forth all this effort into organizing a wedding.
For sure.
Okay, just make sure you do that. All right. Girl, you don't want to be obedient. All right, sorry. All right, let's jump into our real love scenario.
Yes.
This week we are hearing from, I named her Deployed Divorcee.
Okay.
She says, my husband and I have been married for less than a year, 4 months, but I'm torn on so many things. I'm leaving for the Air Force as active duty status, but my husband refuses to come with me. He wants to keep his career as a firefighter and not follow me. I joined because I'm tired of us being a charity case. Plus, we need some distance from family, especially his mother. My husband blamed me for having another baby. He allows his mom to talk crazy to me, and after telling him I need reassurance, he says, for what? He complains that he can't lead me, but to me, he doesn't have the basic knowledge or understanding to do so. I don't see him in active prayer or time with God, and he doesn't educate me. He has never been through anything. His parents practically babied him. He's never been through real life, and I have been that for him, what I want him to be for me. And I know what it's like to truly lean on God, and I know that's all that you have, and he never only had to do that. Don't know what it's like to have no food or lights or any struggles. He was just blessed, which is not a problem or a bad thing, but it's to a point now where we can't connect on anything because I see him simply as a husband who grew up sheltered, spoiled, and without any real life knowledge. We have 2 kids together, and I worry for my son because his dad isn't a leader. My husband dismisses how I feel. He raises his voice at me, or sometimes I just choose to be quiet to avoid certain conversations because he refuses to hear me. Should we divorce? Especially since I'm going into the military and he refuses to come. He is supposed to be my cover. He is supposed to protect me. And he won't come because of his job? Why is he being so complacent? Well, thank you, Deployed Divorcee.
Thank you for writing in.
Appreciate you writing in. This is a mouthful.
It is. It's a lot, and I have thoughts, but I want to know where you want to start with this.
Listen, I want to start. Ooh, good God. I just talked about we focus on the marriage more than the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Crazy how that tied in.
I want to talk about arriving to the decision to enter into marriage.
Okay.
Especially with you, our resident married person.
I am the one
You are the
out of the
one.
two that is
You are the
married.
one out of the two, so you have the experience on the process in preparing to enter into marriage. And specifically, the first question I want to ask you is, how confident, or what helped you to be confident in knowing that you are getting married to stay married? What led into that decision as you were coming up on this day? You already knew you would get married. You would propose, the wedding is being planned. But let's say you're 30, 60 days out from that. How do you know that, like, what I'm walking into, I feel super strongly that this is it for me?
Well, that decision happened way before, or that mindset shift happened way before even I proposed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I knew prior to wedding or proposal that this was somebody that I could see myself spending the rest of my life with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really more about how, it's not necessarily about the good times, right? Because you got good times with a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's never, like, I feel like some people measure that. Like, how can I spend my life with this person off the good times? No. Once we go through some things,
Mm-hmm.
then I know if we could really stand the test of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like even with a house or something. It's like when things are good and it's a sunny day and everything's good, you ain't measuring if a house could truly stand the test of time during those days.
Yeah.
It's like this hurricane came or this storm came or this tornado came
That's it.
and this joint's still up. Like,
That's right.
this house might be here for a while. Like,
That's
you know what I'm saying? So
adversity reveals character.
for sure.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel like I measured it when it came to my relationship with Bree. Is like, I enjoy being around her. I love spending time with her.
Mm-hmm.
All those things are cool, but that's not the foundation. That's not the thing that's going to make this last a test of time.
Yeah.
We got to go through some things and see how we react and see how we interact and what's the posture and how we recover from these things. And we went through some things. And after we went through those things, seeing how we recovered, see how we communicated, it let me know that, okay, although we'll get better at how we communicate in the future, although we get better at the ways that we approach these things or the perspectives that we view these things that we're arguing about, the way and the intention about how we interacted when these situations came up in our lives showed me that in different moments, because I can't predict everything that we might encounter, but in these moments when we are put in that hot water and we are exposed to that flame and have to make a decision on how we're going to react, we react in a way that shows that we do love each other and care about each other and want to protect each other and be there for each other. However, there are just some things that we need to figure out. Yeah. So once I learned that and realized, like, oh, okay, we can get through some things, and I love being around this person and enjoy being around this person, then that made me realize, like, okay, like, we're good. And this is somebody that I will feel like I would want to marry, because you can't predict every single thing. You can't predict every single situation. It's just more of, I'll say this, Bree and I I was watching like a Navy SEALs like training, special forces. And basically they do all these different tests. They put people in these environments to simulate what it could actually be like when you actually go out into, live action. You can't give that full experience all the time, but you try to go through so many different simulations to see how somebody would react in those spaces. And then once you feel like they pass those tests, then you give them that diver's badge or that sniper's badge to say, now you're ready for the real thing, essentially. And hoping, right, that because of their training and because of the things that they've done and experienced, that moving forward, when they actually are in live action, they will be able to handle themselves. And that's the same thing I think with marriage. It's like pre-marriage, you go through all these things and try to simulate all these different experiences. So you're hoping that once you get through those, if you get through those things effectively, that when marriage comes, that no matter what comes, whether it's 5-10 years down the road, that you'll still be able to sustain this thing.
Yeah, I want to contextualize some of what you're saying, and especially for people who, if this is your first time listening to us, I can listen to what you just said and know that when you say, we went through some things, we had some challenges, I know as your friend and the person who's around you, as you were entering to this important part of your life, I know what that means, not even in specificity, just overall, I know what that means. And those challenges or those moments that are like storms, where you use the metaphor of like a house and a hurricane, there needs to be context around the reality of what is a challenge that makes sense for a relationship, that is okay to experience together. Doesn't mean that you all shouldn't be together, though, because life is going to have its challenges. It doesn't mean that you should check out on it just because life is a little hard sometimes. But then there are the set of challenges that they should not be experienced to the point where you then proceed past them. And so again, if this is your first time joining the show and listening to the podcast, we spend a lot of time talking about relationships from a very positive, healthy perspective. When we are talking about challenges in a relationship, we are talking about maybe some communication challenges. We are talking about the getting to know and learn each other, living under the same household, and how to curate finances together, and learning certain dynamics about how to disagree with each other. Or you might have your first few sets of arguments, or you're learning your friends, and maybe there's a little hiccup with some friends on a friend trip. We're not talking about this person just cheating on you day in and day out, and that is challenging. Don't get me wrong, but that's not a challenge that you should try to keep working through and then get married on top of. Okay, so there are some that are just blatant, absolutely not. Challenges, a person could be beating you, hitting you, being really verbally and physically abusive to you. Not them challenges, y'all.
No.
Okay, not those. Not those. The challenges of learning how to do life in tandem with someone, right? Those are two different sets. Some of them challenges are throw the whole person away. The other ones are, okay, I'm learning, and yet this is still the person for me. I had a rough day, or I'm trying to get a business off the ground. How is this person being integral during this challenging time in my life?
Exactly.
I just had to add context to that, because people
I know people do that. They do that. They'll run with it
and be like, well, yeah, so then why y'all be telling me to not be with him? Because not the same. No, they're not the same thing.
I mean, I forgot who said this to me one time, but it's like life is full of black and whites, but people who succeed in life learn how to operate in the gray.
Yeah.
Like when it's not so clear of like how things will be. And in life, there is so much gray. Like black and white. If somebody's hitting you, if somebody's raping you, if somebody's cheating on you, these things are black and white.
Yeah.
No. What we're talking about is the gray in relationships, the things that isn't necessarily wrong, but maybe it's particular to you.
Yes.
Or like things that, people go through, or like Rhonda said, communication issues. It's not necessarily somebody is like doing something wrong or intentionally hurting you.
Yes.
It's just like we're not clicking, or you don't understand how I feel. Or like these are the normal relationship problems that we all deal through, that sometimes we can't stand the test of time. And it's the things of like, all right, I'm in a relationship or I'm dating somebody. What things am I willing to concede on, and what things am I not willing to concede on? I work in entertainment. I'm running a podcast network right now for Urban One. We get a lot of deals that come to us. And sometimes I get on a call with people and there's a mutual understanding that although you're pitching me this opportunity, this one may not work for us.
Yeah.
But it's possible that other ones could work based on the host, based on the deal structure, based on the budget, based on where we are in this moment. And that's what a lot of the figuring relationship stuff out that we're talking about is contextualized as. It's like not the beating, cheating, the toxic person. It's like, all right, this is what I want out of our relationship. This is what you want out of our relationship. None of these things are necessarily wrong, but are we the compatible ones for each other in order to get what we want out of a relationship? That may not be the case. It's not saying, how many people that I've talked to that I may have dated that are married now? They not married now and not married to me because I was a bad person or they was a bad person. They just found their person who works for them.
Better
fit for them.
That's it.
And it's the same for me. I found my person who was a better fit for me. We're not just bad people because it didn't work. You found your person. You knew what you were looking for. You knew what you wanted. I wasn't that, or you weren't that for me. And we found our people, and that's okay. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about like figuring out, working through the challenges. is finding, are we compatible?
Yeah.
Does this relationship work, and does it work for the future?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I just you have to make it extra clear.
You do.
I loved, going back to the first question about the process in which you understood and you gleaned, okay, I can enter into marrying this person. And I asked that because in the scenario, it was so jarring to see her say that they have only been married for 4 months. And then they've been together clearly for some time because they have 2 children. So at least, I would say at least maybe 4 years. Let's just call it that. He had 2 pregnancies, 2 kids.
Dealing with each other for that long.
Yes. But it's like, how do you get married? Maybe they didn't have a wedding, don't know. And then 4 months in, you are already like, I think I want out of this. How do you get there so fast?
I don't know. I think that one thing that she mentioned in this story is that she's in the Air Force. So I do know that there are a lot of advantages when it comes to military once you get married.
Sure.
And maybe even him leaving with her was contingent on them possibly being married. Like that was contingent on him being able to leave and go to a different place and stay and have certain accommodations or certain benefits. They would have to be married in order to get those things. Yeah. So maybe it was a strategic move more than let's say love move or something of that nature. But from what she's describing, it seems like he has been the person he has been for a while.
Yes.
And why you would enter that space of marriage, like I said, the only way I can reason it is for some type of like benefit for her being in the military.
Yeah, because I'm just like, there is just no way that the signs weren't there. They were there, and it always loops around. There's sometimes a lot of in a lot of our scenarios, there's this undertone of the writing being on the wall. And it's just not being read. It's just blatantly being ignored. You cannot tell me that literally 4 months after saying I do, he just switched. He just turned into a totally different person. I'm not saying that's not possible, but it's highly unlikely. He was probably showing you these signs before marriage. He was likely showing these signs to you before you even had the second child. I'm sure that there has been undertones of this for some time. And so it's just so concerning and almost not disappointing, but it's just, a little disheartening to think that you would move forward with making a commitment before God, or maybe you didn't make it before God, but you would make a legal commitment to someone without having clarity on if this is truly supposed to work. And I just want to say, marriage does not fix things. Getting married in a situation when it's already not right, when it's just a relationship, when you all are just committed to one another, marriage won't make it better. It will not.
It'll make it worse, honestly.
It honestly will likely make it worse. Running to the altar, running to the courthouse, and just being like, well, maybe if we become husband and wife, that's the trick. That is going to get you in a trick bag. That's not the trick. And so I feel that a deployed divorcee literally maybe did that, they had this mindset that, well, we got 2 kids together, well, we've been together, we should just go ahead on and get married. If you ever have to frame out getting married as we should just go ahead on and get married, you should not get married.
I agree.
No need.
I agree. But the thing with this scenario, which I think is one of the biggest themes that I'm starting to see, is that I'm not saying that our real lover is not being truthful, because I think that she is, especially from her perspective. Yes. Like, this is how she see things. I'm sure that there are certain behaviors that he has had that's contributed to her mindset and her perspective. But one of the biggest themes I think here is what I always say, which is a silent killer in relationships, is resentment. Yeah. And resentment shows up in different ways and is formed in different ways. And sometimes it's based off of certain things that your partner has done, or certain decisions that they have made, or certain decisions that you feel like they forced you to make, or that they forced you not to, or that decisions that you didn't make, and now you're like, dang, I wish I would have did that, or I wish I wouldn't have did that. But sometimes it does show up in how you view your partner's upbringing and their way of living life. Like, not saying that anything you're saying is wrong, but how you wrote it in the language is so critical of him.
Yes.
And although you say, oh, those things are good and whatever, it's like you're envious of him, of how he grew up, that he didn't have to struggle. Like, if you're saying in this thing, like, oh, you never had to, you don't know what it's like to not have the lights on. And it's like, yeah, like, that's okay though.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Even when she's saying he didn't have struggles, he didn't have to be basically a prayer warrior in order to get through his life. It's like, that's also good to be able to have that too. Like, understanding there's certain things that come with struggle. There's certain level of resiliency, or, like, if that's a word, or perseverance that you have, or strength that you have from going through a lot of things. But I feel like a lot of times too, as Black people, are culture to a certain extent is struggle.
Yeah.
And it's like you get discounted for having the Black experience if you didn't necessarily struggle.
Yes.
Oh, you ain't never do this. You ain't never had served sandwiches. You ain't never done this. Oh, you had cable all your life. Like, you ain't know, like, I remember we had to do this and do that. And you kind of get discounted.
You feel like it's like a badge of honor to have struggled. And it's like a thing that should be like celebrated. And it's like, no, I'm happy that you have made it out and you have these experiences, but I feel like it sounds like you resent your husband for not having to struggle as much as you did. And the thing with resentment and a lot of these feelings and emotions, like resentment or things like that, is that they show up subconsciously, like in your language, in your tone. Like, you think you're saying things to him regularly, but because you resent him, because you feel like he should have struggled, or you feel like you had it harder than him, and he should be more appreciative, or he should have a certain outlook on life. How you say things, even if it's asking him to do something or pick up something, or how you react when he doesn't do something that you want him to do, comes off in a way that's probably so condescending sometimes that it's just like off-putting to him. And I've been in that situation. Like, when Brie and I first started our business together, she resented me because she felt like my journey to entrepreneurship was easier. That she had to struggle, she had to grind, she had to figure out all these things, to where I get to stroll into it. She had her experiences, so she knew things. And then I had like a cushion of money built up, so it wasn't no struggle for me. I wasn't like scrapping for money. And there was like a resentment. It's like, you get to call yourself this, but then, I call myself this, but you didn't struggle nearly as much as I did. And it's like, there was a little bit of resentment that was built up for that. So in every action, everything that we did, everything that you would say, you would hint that, like, feeling felt
of
a way about it.
You're undeserving, or you don't know as good, or you don't know better because you haven't been through these things. And you're saying in this thing that he's not a leader, but I wonder if you give him the opportunity to do that, or you feel like he's so inadequate and so incapable that if he says even we should try this or do something, you're like, you don't know. You ain't never experienced nothing really in your life. So I'm not listening to you, because whatever you're saying, you don't even know it. But I want you to lead me. But
I want you to lead me in a way that I want you to lead me.
Yeah, I don't think you're really credible in what you're saying.
Yes.
But like, because you haven't experienced life, but I want you to still lead, or I feel like you're not capable of leading because you never had these experiences. And it's like, if you're going to hold that over his head the entire time, it won't even be a question about divorce. Y'all going to both get to a point to where y'all want to do that because you're going to drive each other crazy.
For sure. I want to play devil's advocate slightly to the idea around struggle, although I agree with you, and I have no desire, like, for the children that I pray that God gives me, I don't want my children to have to experience certain struggles that I did. There were some tough times here and there, but in general, I had a very, I would say, normal, comfortable childhood. But yes, there were some times where things were a little tough. Do I need to repeat that with my kids in order for them to appreciate life or appreciate what we had? No, they can still get that lesson in a different way.
For sure.
Yes, I got it by way of struggle. They don't have to get the lesson by way of struggle. But the way I said I wanted to push back a little bit is that I do think sometimes, struggle or difficult situations, it's like how diamonds are made. That pressure that they go through, the process in which they go through can sometimes create something that is beautiful, that is wonderful, or you glean so much from those situations that it's like you have what some people call street smarts, not just book smarts. But I don't think that when people don't have that makes them incapable of leadership, or that makes them incapable of liking or appreciating life or certain life experiences. There are, though, some people who were so incredibly sheltered and so incredibly spoiled that they are inadequate. I've been around them. I'm sure you've experienced people like this, where it's like, you literally just got coddled for so long that once the coddling and the little protection fell off, you felt like a fish out of water. Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know where to. And again, it's not a struggle. It's just you weren't equipped. There is a way. That's why I said I want to be able to give my kids, I want my children to be able to get the same lesson that I got without them going through the same struggle that I went through. And you can teach that in a multitude of ways. There are other ways to show it. And so I agree with you that the tone that I got from the way it was written is that he may very well be a leader. He's just not the type of leader that you want, or he's not leading in the way that you would lead if you were in the position of leadership in your relationship. And that's not fair. It's just not fair. You can make certain suggestions, but he gets to arrive to that the best way he knows how. And if you are his partner, you're going to be doing life with him, you all should, again, be shaping that together. And you most certainly should have spent a lot more time shaping it before you decided to get married. You should have spent more time doing it on the front end than now trying to pull it up from the rear.
Yeah, it reminds me of like coaching, where certain coaches, like they say the really good coaches, they take the players that they have and adjust the system around those players, versus like, this is the system that I run and this is what I'm doing. And if you can't run it, then it won't work. So I think that sometimes in relationships, if you're choosing somebody, especially in marriage, you're saying this is the person, like you have to understand who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And come from it with a place of empathy first. And when you come with empathy first, then you are trying to understand where this person is coming from.
Sure.
And then once you know where they're coming from, then you're better equipped to reach them and understand how to develop a way of communication or a mode of communication to get through to them and to reach them.
Yeah.
So if you know that your husband may have been sheltered or may not have had certain experiences, he's still a man. So there's a certain way that you need to approach it, but you need to have empathy. It's like, this is just how he was raised.
Yeah.
He didn't choose these situations.
Yeah.
He didn't choose how he was brought up. And I'm sure if it was up to you, you wouldn't have chose to struggle in some of the ways that you have struggled.
Yeah.
So it's like, you have to understand, okay, this is my person. All right, if I really want this to work, I am with them and have been with them for so long because there's some good qualities, some fun, some strong, some strengths that they have that makes this relationship worthwhile. So how do I start to adjust and create this environment to where these things work? Like when I first met Bree, that was a lot of what we had did. It was a lot of things that she never experienced that I felt like all adults should experience this, or all adults should know this, or you should know, like, to do this or to do that. And we had to have conversations, but I realized, okay, this is, maybe you learned this when you were brought up in a certain way, or now in your adulthood, you were on your own since you were like 17 or 18. So certain things you didn't see as important, or certain things you didn't have to do. So like, all right, how do we start to build this thing or construct this relationship and get you in a position to where we can help you achieve these things? But the biggest thing for me with Bree was that she was receptive. Like, she said, like, okay, these are certain things that I don't know. These are certain things that I want to improve. I know I'm not great with my money, but this is just how I did things. And it was a struggle to try to get her to change like certain mentalities. But at the end of it, she was ultimately like, I want to be better and I want to do better. And I think that's the mindset, is that if you're somebody who lacks experience in certain areas, you have to acknowledge that and say like, hey, I get it, but I'm open to hearing what you have to say, to learn, and hopefully from your experience and my experience, we can get to a place. And if you are the person who has the experience and has a lot of scars and trauma from certain experiences that you have, you can't resent the people who didn't have those things and didn't have those struggles. It's like the people who, with the student loans thing, is like they paid off their student loans, but they like, I don't want anybody to get any loans for free. Like, I don't want none. It's like, I struggled through this, so you got to struggle too. And if you get it for free, I resent you. And it's like, everything that we do in life is to make it better off for the next person. So you're just going to resent the next person basically because they didn't struggle. So basically you want us to stay in a cycle.
It's a wild concept
of like struggle so that you feel good about your struggle.
They got to struggle.
They got to struggle too. And it's like, that's not how we move forward as people and move forward as individuals. And it's like, you just have to recognize that and give that man some grace, because we're only talking to you. If you really want this situation to work, I think giving someone grace and being like, all right, I'm looking, I know where they come from. How can I best help them in this situation? Especially know that I'm addressing a man. Like in my situation, I know the dynamic was different because my wife's a woman. And there's this societal thought that men lead and men dictate certain things and set directions. So even me saying these things, there was a certain level of submission and obedience that I think came along with that just felt natural because of the gender dynamic. But on the opposite way, you can't be addressing a man in a way that's like super condescending or speaking really down to him, because even in his head, in this situation, he like, yo, I'm taught in my mind to provide, to do these things for my family. And it's like, a firefighter is an actual career. Like, that's not like a job.
I'm so glad we're addressing that right now, because like, even that was just like,
that's not a job. That's not like, yo, I'm a server. They're a career service, but like, I'm a server, I'm a cashier, or like I'm like a firefighter's actual career.
Yes, lifelong job.
Pensions, benefits, like lifelong jobs. And I can understand if somebody isn't just like gun ho about like
walking away
from that, going to a completely different place. And now I have to find a way to provide. And you're already telling me how I don't have life experiences, how I don't operate pretty much as an adult. And you're telling me to leave my job to rely completely on you and not be able to provide anything for myself. It's just, it could come off as contradictory, and the message can get lost, especially if all that is with that tone of resentment that you feel for him, because then it's not getting delivered in a constructive way. It's getting delivered probably in a judgmental way.
Very much so. Just the overall undertone of the scenario is so frustrating. And I will give credence to the fact that we only have your side of the story.
For sure.
That I believe that there are some challenges, right? Like with him, I believe that, if you saying he raises his voice at you, that's not okay. That you tell him that you need reassurance for certain things and he questions why you need that. Also not okay. That's a conversation, right? It's something that you all should talk about, because if you're asking for reassurance, that typically means that you don't feel safe. If I tell you, I need you to tell me that it's okay, or I need you to assure me that things are good. If I have to ask for that reassurance, that says that I feel unstable, right? And for him to just, his rebuttal to that is just like, what you need reassurance for? I get it. Sometimes it can feel irritating if someone needs it too much, because there's a fine line between making sure you feel safe and then just babying you, stroking your ego just because you need it stroked every 5 minutes. There's a fine line. So I do believe that certainly there may be things about him that that beg for question as to if he is truly capable of being the leader that that you would like for him to be. I've said this on other episodes, that I don't necessarily believe in the hard, set and fast ideas of men lead, women follow, men lead, women submit, and that it's hard, fast at those lines. I know, wild concept. I might be in the minority when it comes to that, But I do think that that is an ebb and flow in every relationship. And more than fixating on because he's the man, he should run the show. And because you're the woman, you should follow behind him. I want more people to just figure out a system that works for them, that there's a system to that. You cannot be a great leader if you do not know how to follow. So you as a leader even have to understand that. You can't ever get away from that. I've been in a leadership position majority of my working life at this point. I lead a team today. I have led teams for years. I also follow people. I follow people too, still to this very day as a leader, even within the org at my full-time job. Like, they're people that I am under their leadership. I am in servitude to them just as much as I'm in servitude to the people that follow me. Nothing about the duality of those things challenge who I am as a leader. Neither one of the things make it right or wrong. There is a process. What I care more about is the people that I am following. Do they feel that I am doing a really good job at that? Do they get from me what they need from me when there's the time for me to follow? Am I aligned with the goals? For the people that I lead, do they feel like they can trust me? Do they feel comfortable and safe with my leadership? Do they feel like I'm a team player? Because that's another thing. A lot of times people get in positions of leadership just to point and dictate. Every part of leadership is not dictation. It's not a dictatorship. Leadership means that you're at the helm of things most of the time. But there are times where I am happily, listen, this was our dynamic when we worked together. There were things that I had nothing to do with. Nothing to do with. I might have been the manager, the primary person at the property, but there were things that you did 100% of the time that I don't want nothing to do with. I trust you because you are a leader too. You are a leader within yourself. So relationships and marriages and dynamics, I think, especially in today's world, there are these buzzwords around masculinity, femininity, leadership, fellowship. It is so exhausting, and I feel like it gets us so far away from each other because you all are on a team. And you're supposed to be on a team to work together to get to the common goal, which should be a successful, well-oiled machine of a relationship. And so I don't think she's making room for the duality of one. Like you said, he comes from a certain environment. He came through a certain lifestyle where he didn't struggle like you did. But you diminish that. You say it's not a bad thing, but again, you diminish it through your language when you wrote into us. So I know a person that you know, that you slept with, that you made babies with. I can only imagine how it gets worded to him.
Yeah.
I can only fathom it. The fact that you even called, you said you joined the Air Force because you didn't want to be a charity case anymore. Even the language that you use to describe yourselves, you're saying that you went and took up a job so that you all would stop being a charity case. To who? To who? Whose perception is that? Is that something somebody said to you, or is that something that you feel? I would bet it's something that you feel.
Yeah.
You feel like your husband doesn't make enough money as a firefighter. And that doesn't allow for you all to do certain things, right? Like, doesn't allow you to maybe afford certain things because perhaps you weren't working before you did that. I don't know, because it's not in the right end. But it's just a nasty way to even think of yourself, that you would see yourself as a charity case. Now, the one thing I do want to address super quick is about the mom, and that he lets his mother talk crazy to her.
Got you. I just want to add one point to that. Is when you talk about like leadership and that dynamic, I just want people to understand that there is no empty cockpits when it comes to human relationships or human dynamics. Like somebody's going to assume that position. It's just only natural. We're herd animals, and every herd has a leader and a pecking order. So if one person is not assuming that role in a relationship or a dynamic, another person is going to step up and do it. Like somebody's going to do that. So I feel like it's necessary to have somebody to lead, and somebody will always lead in a particular situation. They're like, there won't be a situation where it's just like nobody taking up the mantle. Like we'll
No, of
just
course not. No.
naturally do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's important for somebody to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you said, it's just understanding how that dynamic will work
Yes.
is the most important thing. So I thought that was a good point that you
Yeah, yeah,
made when it
yeah.
comes to the leadership portion.
And I watch and I listen to so many married people talk because I want marriage, right? So I enjoy conversations around it, whether it's just with
Mm-hmm.
my friends who are married or other people whose marriage from afar I admire. And one thing that is consistent that I hear for the people whose marriages I'm like, that looks like something good and healthy, is that just moves around sometimes. Like I watched something with Kev on stage and Mrs. Kev on stage where there are times where certain facets of their life, their family, their marriage, she leads. Certain facets of the marriage in general, he might lead. That changes day to day. It's days where he like, I ain't doing it with I'm not doing it with the kids today. You are in the driver's seat. You tell me what you need me to do, and I'm gonna go do that. And tomorrow, maybe that'll be different. Next week, maybe that'll be different. Someone absolutely always has to be stepping up and carrying the flag. It's just this concept of that it always has to be the man every single time, nonstop. We must always default to that. And I'm not saying this because I'm a woman that don't want to follow, because surely, I say quick, yep, yes, daddy, where we going, what we doing? I want to lay back. I want to be a passenger princess. I want all the things. But I just think it creates a slippery slope sometimes because it's just not realistic, because also leaders get tired.
Yeah.
Leaders get tired. There are men who I've heard say like, listen, I am in general taking care of all of these things. It would just be nice if you would run point on that. I just need you run point on that.
And that's what leadership is. That's the dynamic that I don't think people understand. It's like I do believe that men lead in relationships, or that most of the time it works, not say better, but it tends to work a lot more smoothly that way. Mainly too because men a lot of times can't handle not being in that position to a certain extent. Like if a woman is leading completely in a relationship, that sometimes she doesn't tend to respect the man in a lot of situations that I've seen. And that dynamic is weird. But what you're explaining in that dynamic is not like leadership isn't in every single thing. If I'm leading this completely as a unit or as an entirety for our relationship, that does not mean I make every single decision in every single part of the relationship.
Yes.
Being a good leader is knowing when to defer, when to choose what things like choose your battles and pick what you want to hold fast on. Like as a leader in my relationship, Bree 9 times out of 10, if you want to call her the follower and I'm the leader, Bree 9 times out of 10 gets what she wants most of the time. I just have to keep that strategic, like look at things that only I pulled maybe this card 2 or 3 times where I had to seriously, no, no, like we can't do that.
Yeah.
And that's because I have to, I'm overlooking the relationship as a whole and all of our goals and what we said we want to manage and what we said we want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, we can't do this on this part. But on the other times, like we split up responsibilities. Like leadership in a relationship as a whole is not representative of the split of like certain responsibilities. Task. Yeah. It's not indicative or representative of task in a relationship. Like Bree can cook, I can cook. I take the trash out, she take the trash out.
And
like that's there's this task in order to do something.
But that's what happens a lot.
That's how
what
people
it gets
interpret it to be.
So then you have this butting of heads around what leadership is, because then it's, I'm the leader, I don't cook. I'm the follower. I'm supposed to fold clothes. It's like, yeah, no, that's shared responsibilities because you're on the same team. So yes, you're right. That is what I am talking about. Leadership in the points, that you can't get lost in this idea that, well, this person is the leader, so they only have these certain set of responsibilities, or they get to make all the decisions all the time. You're right. Thank you for helping clarify that.
Yeah.
That is what I'm talking about.
I
for
see it
sure.
more as a high level position where there are high level goals that we want to achieve, and there's somebody responsible to make sure that we maintain on that pace and that level of achieving those goals. Somebody has to overlook that and making sure that we are doing those things. And that's more of what I see it as: setting the direction, setting a strategic vision for what we're ultimately going to accomplish. And then the tasks are broken up, however, based off of our strengths, based off of so many different things. I know men who love to cook, men who are better cleaners, or do all these different things in their relationships, and that's all fine. But it's like, what's our main goal? That's the only thing I feel like in my relationship, leadership wise, that I really take up that mantle, and you see that representative in how I communicate with Bree is based off of our overall goal.
Yeah.
All right, this purchase is over $1,500. Like, all right, what do we spend this on? Why are we spending this? I don't think we should do that right now, because we have an overall goal of what we're trying to accomplish. But still, in that moment, I'm talking to Bree about it and having conversations and trying to figure out, because ultimately as a leader, you're in the charge of the people that you serve. Like, you, even in the herds, like the people who are leading are either leading to food or leading to safety or leading to protect the herd and the group. And that's what it is. So like I said, there's so many misconceptions, so many the interpretation of what these things actually mean, and people just go off. And I think people want to be upset and want to be angry, so they
don't want to be cooperative.
They don't want to be cooperative at all. And it's just like, man, you're fighting against your own human nature of like being part of a group and being part of a herd. And like, we all operate like these structures that we have in society didn't just happen. This is the type of people that we are. Like, when we're in groups, we want somebody to lead the group. We want somebody to take responsibility. We want that's just a natural thing. Every structure of our lives, whether that's government, whether that's businesses, whether that's church, spiritual, there's leaders. And we want those people in there. And that's how we operate as humans. So to like go in your relationship and be like, nah, I don't want this. It's like,
it's nuts.
It's not realistic.
It's nuts. And we always talk about effective communication. Effective communication, it matters. And speaking of effective communication, or better yet, ineffective communication, I was going into the part about like his mom. Being not so nice and given the room, I guess, to speak to her crazy, as she words it. I'm curious if
what that is.
Well, I mean, I am curious to some degree what that is, but I was going to ask if you've ever experienced that, like when you dated someone. I know that you have a wonderful relationship with Bree's mom.
Yeah, I love Miss Dawn. Dawn.
We love you, Dawn. I love her too. But have you ever dated someone where like their parent was like, you too involved, or you like it's just too much, or you could foresee that they would have been problematic?
I've never dated anybody like that, but I've seen situations like that where a parent can't let their child go. I've seen situations to where you could tell the influence the parent has on the child is very heavy. And most of the time I don't see it, ending very successfully in certain situations, but I've never personally dealt with that. No.
I have never dealt with that, because I've always been very much liked. And I've always had a great relationship with my partner's parents, and I'm thankful that I've actually always had a partner who had either really good or at least a decent relationship with the parents that were a part of their lives, so that that flow just didn't, we never got into that place where their parent would ever think it was okay to over meddle, like get too far in between the relationship, and to not be able to let go of your child. Obviously I'm a parent, so I don't know the feeling, but I do feel like it's so unfortunate that people don't stop their parents, like that you can't somehow get a grip on your own parent. And I
Yeah,
understand the dynamics, right? Because I talked to you about like my mom, where it's like my mom might do something and I'm like, Mom, you killing me right now, right? But it's a way that I have to speak to her because she deserves honor and respect and reverence.
for
She's my
sure.
parent. But at a base level, we're both adults at this point.
Yes.
I'm an adult, she's an adult. And if my mother is getting out of pocket, being disrespectful to me or to a person that I love and I've chosen to marry, and this is now my person, and my mom is completely unwarranted, has absolutely no business doing what she's doing. While I love her, just like she told me, just because I love you don't mean I ain't going to discipline you. Just
Yeah.
because I love you does not mean I'm not going to check you. Just because I love you does not mean we're not going to have some tough conversations. So it goes the same way. Like, Mom, you got to stop. I can't let you do that. Or please don't talk to me like that. Or please don't talk to my partner like that.
Yeah. And I think you have to differentiate between what disrespect is and what is a parent just being a parent and kind of being who they are. You know what I mean? Like, I think that all parents probably have certain annoying tendencies that could just be like, here
Yes.
they go again. Or
Yes.
like,
And your kids going to feel that way
your
about you,
kids gonna
you
feel that
know?
way about you. And there may be things that even with your partners, it's like, yo, they grew up a certain way and that's how they have always operated. My parents grew up a certain way and that's how they always operated. That's just my parents. You know what I mean? Versus like it being something disrespectful. I think there's between something that you don't like versus somebody doing something disrespectful to you.
Yes.
Like there may be things that irritate you, but they're not being disrespectful. It's just kind of who they are.
Yeah.
So for instance, like my parents, are elders, ministers in the church. They have a certain way, like my mom wants you to throw away certain things in this trash can versus that trash can. Or so if you go to throw something away, it's like, oh no, don't throw it in that trash can, throw it in the other trash can. That's not disrespect or them treating you no type of way. It's just like, this is how we operate in my house and this is how I do things. Like, so it's important to differentiate that from like when somebody's actually coming at you and saying something, because I feel like all those things, like, it's like, you don't have to address, like, especially when it comes to your parents, I feel like that's a heavy thing, right?
Yes, it
To
is.
like come to them and tell them like, yo, the way that you're acting, the way that you're doing something is making my person feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
Like that's a heavy conversation to have. So if I'm going to have that conversation,
we got to be sure.
Like we got to be sure that
yes.
that's actually what's happening and that's something that's, we could track, we have examples and it's repeatable and it's something that I could bring them and be like, okay, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Versus it being like a one-off instance or something. It's like, we don't even see my parents that often. And I don't think that's what they meant by it. Or, I just want to be sure if we're having this conversation.
Yeah. And also to just nip it in the bud as quickly as you can once you do know that it's sure. You cannot just give, no matter who it is, you cannot just give them free reign to disrespect, because if you know for a fact that's what they're doing and you don't check it, it will not stop. Especially if it's a person who has an authoritative position in your life by birthright. Like they are your parent, so they automatically feel that they have higher authority over you. And I'm not saying that they don't, but nobody. And I think it was on the Amanda Seals episode, she talked about this. Like, just because my dad. Listen, the game is a little different now. I'm grown,
I just can't imagine. I've never experienced it, but I can't imagine that being the beef, like between your wife and your mom. Like,
oh my God. I could not fathom it either.
Trying to deal with that would be like.
Shout out to y'all that do, because I've seen it. I remember it was on Real Housewives of Potomac. Chris Samuel's mother and his wife. Oh my goodness. The way that I would be like, yeah, let's go ahead on and wrap this up, because I don't want to be with you. If you can't get her under control. I mean, it's a Candy and her mom, same thing with Todd. It's like your mom just be out here. And Lord, I know Candy get real defensive about her mother. Candy Burst, I love you. I like Mama Joyce too, but I'm just being honest. It's been times where she just straight say something to that man, and it's like,
Nah, and then sometimes when
Oh.
your person and your parent get into it, you just kind of want to just be
You
like,
just want to run and hide.
like,
Like,
like I just want to go away. Like I don't, because either way, I'm getting it either from
yes.
either side. But
And that's probably what he's doing in this
yeah, he's probably
scenario.
just like,
He's cowering and he's just like, I don't want my name Bennett. I ain't in it. I don't want nothing to do with it. And that's the wrong reaction to have
nah,
because you're the person that binds these two people.
yeah,
You're the person. And so if it's your parent that's being disrespectful, it's on you to check it. If it's your wife that's being disrespectful to your parent, it is on you to check it. And you have to tell both parties, hey, go to your corners. And I'm going to deal with this. It has to come from you. It really does. It has to start with you. It has to start with you. So I think family drama is so hard. It's got to be one of the hardest things to deal with in a relationship, especially if it's your parents.
yeah, for sure.
Oh gosh.
I'm glad I ain't never had to deal with that.
Yeah.
I was always that
I'm gonna keep
young
my prayers
guy
up that I don't
who
have
was
to deal with it.
you know, dark skinned, nice smile, good looking brother, and you know what's the that's a good man, Savannah. What movie is that from?
Waiting to
Waiting
exhale.
to Exhale. And that was made in the 90s, 95.
It
So
was in the
yeah,
90s.
yeah. So you know the people that wrote that was probably around the ages of the moms that I was interacting with. And you know, black moms, they see a good black man and he got a good job and he like they looking at their kid like, listen, you better keep this man. Like
Yeah.
there ain't a lot of good men out here now.
Now,
Like
now let me just say this real quick to clarify that movie, because what Dre may not remember is the
I'm
man
just
that her
saying.
mama was telling her was a good man was somebody's husband, y'all. Now he was very nice to Savannah. He was very nice to Savannah, but good was is relative.
Good is relative, but that
In your
shows
case, different story.
it shows that if you got a black man that
That's
seems to
good
do
looking
well,
and
good looking, seem to do well for himself, it's like,
yeah.
listen,
Hey.
hey,
Yes.
you see your granddaddy over there on the couch? I wish I would have divorced his ass 30 years ago. Lazy ass.
Lazy ass self. Oh man. Oh man. Listen, so we gotta answer her question.
Yes.
The question that we don't like answering. Should we divorce?
No.
We ain't answering that question.
I ain't gonna answer that question. I think that when it comes to situations, a lot of times, and we all are guilty of doing this. We always want to look at the part that the other person plays.
Yeah.
And we don't ever want to look at our contributions to it. And that was one thing that I had to realize in my relationship, and one thing I expressed to Bree, and one thing I had to, and that's also something that I had to internally look at within myself and say, okay, this is how this person is acting. I don't like how they're acting. I don't like the things that they're saying. I don't like what they're doing. However, am I doing things that contribute to that or foster an environment for that to be a thing or make her say or react in that way?
Yep.
And I had to look at myself first before I give up on anything. Is there behaviors that I need to change that can help make this situation better?
Yeah.
And I realized, yes, that is most of the time it is the case that there are a lot of things that you can do to make the situation better. And one of the things that I realized, which I would give advice to her, is the tone and how you say things.
Yeah.
That can change so much. Like even one thing I try to express to Bree, and she's gotten so much better at it. I love my wife and our relationship so much because like we can say things and we really try to work on them. But Bree she would lose something or can't find something, and she would say, what did you do with the remote?"
It's just an accusatory question.
It's an always going to be defensive. So if you always frame questions in that way, at some point I'm going to break. Everything's always my fault. Everything's always me. Why I do this? What did I do with it? Versus all you had to say was, "Hey, have you seen the remote?"
That's it.
Hey, I can't find a remote. Have you seen it? That is the same thing, but you're asking it in a way that doesn't make me feel defensive or feel like you're accusing me of something. It's just saying, hey, this thing went missing. I can't find it.
Yeah.
And even if I may have misplaced it or anything, like the way that you're communicating and talking about it is completely different. So it's important to approach relationships in that way. And then also that builds all those things builds into the narrative of your relationship. And I feel like all of our relationships have a narrative. Like we all read stories, we all read books, we watch movies. Like a lot of these relationships that we read about or see in movies are often fictional, but it can easily be a book written about our lives and have its own characters and have its own relationship. And I think that sometimes you got to look at your relationship and say, what's my relationship narrative? Like, what is the narrative that I have about my relationship? What is the narrative that I have when it comes to me and my dynamic with my person? If my person had to write a story about our relationship, what would be the underlining narrative? If there was a summary of our book, what would it be? And understanding like, okay, now are the things that I'm doing feeding into that narrative or not? So it's like, I may be in a relationship as this man saying like, yo, my narrative or my story is I have a wife I've been with for a long time. We have good times, we have bad times, but she accuses me of things so much that I feel like I didn't even do or I didn't even participate in, and she looks down at me. And that's like the narrative that he's created in his mind. So then every time you say something in a certain way, it's just adding to that narrative and building on that narrative. So then when he gets to that breaking point, he's looking at it as like, this has been the story for so long that we've been in this relationship and you constantly speak down on me. You constantly tell me I'm inadequate. You constantly use defensive language or accuse me of things or saying that I'm wrong. And that's how we ended up to this point. That's the story that he's telling himself. And like I said, every time you do something, you're adding to that story. So just think about the part that you play in how he behaves and how you further that behavior and how you can help stop that behavior. And I think that would be my advice, because there's only one person that you can control in a situation, and that's yourself. And if you want to do the thing that most marriages or partners can do in marriage, which is influence your partner, it all starts with how you behave. That's how you give and draw influence.
Yes. I really and truly agree with that. I would say my advice is, you're at a point where you're considering the big D word and you're married, right? I think it should be a no-brainer that it's probably time to have that really hard conversation with him, just that you're thinking about it. I think you should at least have the conversation that we have been going through this.
You think so? You think she should say like, I'm contemplating divorce?
Yes, and I'm gonna explain why. It doesn't mean that you're going to do it. It doesn't mean that you're even going to get close to it. But the fact that you thought it is something that lots of married couples don't even think. That the thought of divorce don't even come in their head. Things that's happening in their marriage are so okay. It has challenges and all, but they never even thought about a divorce. She's thought about this multiple times, thought about it enough to sit down and write to us to ask us if she should get divorced. When realistically, that is such a heavy decision, which is why, again, it's your first time joining us. We absolutely never, ever answer that question when people say, should I get divorced? When they're legally married, we can't tell you that. That's a heavy decision that only you and your person, your spouse, can arrive to. I think that she should say it so that sometimes I feel like that is it's a shaking. It is to show, it's a distress sign that, hey, things are so bad. Whether it's me and you, me or you, just you, whatever it is, it's a distress sign that, hello, I am concerned. I'm concerned, and my only option right now is divorce. And I don't want to divorce you. I don't. I want us to be together. I want to stay married, but we are at a place where I feel like I'm waving a SOS that I need to be saved from this situation. I need us to take this seriously and figure out what we need to do, and then lay out, like Dre said, what part you've played. Before you go and have this conversation. I'm not saying listen to this episode and go Johnny on the spot, go run to him and say, hey, I want a divorce, so I'm thinking about leaving you. It is a tone in which you say it. You should be coming and saying, hey, this is on my mind and I'm concerned. I'm worried that we are going to have to go our separate ways. And I want us to figure out what we need to do to save our marriage. I'm willing to do the work. I apologize for the way that I speak to you, but I also want, maybe, ended there, skip the but. I apologize to you for what I've done. I apologize for how I've handled it. I apologize that I haven't allowed you to lead. I need us to figure out this relationship, though. I need us to really do the work to figure out what we're going to do, because I want this union. I want it to work. I don't think that they've had that type of heart to heart, because like you said, I think so much resentment has built up. I think so much discourse has built up. I think, yes, whatever she says at this point, it just probably sound like a complaint to him. Like, period. She could sometimes say things nicely, but she done said it bad so many times that he like, I just want you to shut up. I just want you to be quiet and not complain or ask me anything. Anything that he does, a good sign of leadership. She could be like, so whatever. Like, they are, to me, literally on opposite ends. To the fact that you're still willing to go off to active duty while your marriage is in disarray, when this is the pinnacle of your life right now. Your marriage is the peak of your life right now. If this is not right, everything else can crumble. Everything else crumble. You like, I don't care. I will leave him and go get in the Air Force. That is very concerning. So to think it, to me, is worth having the conversation, especially based on how she worded it. It just sounds like the relationship is it's on its last leg.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would have the conversation for sure, but I don't know if I would actually say the word divorce.
Yeah.
Just because there's a certain stigma or a certain thought that comes with that I feel could be a distraction in the actual conversation. That's like, once you hear that word, you could think that it's already over to a certain extent. Like, oh, you've been thinking about divorcing me? Well, at this point, we might as well,
and
there
if
could
that's
be something.
Their reaction.
Well, I think that there's something that could be introduced in that it's like, almost, if somebody is thinking of divorcing you, or they've thought out, if somebody's saying, I've been thinking of divorce, it comes off as if you've been messing up and I'm thinking about divorcing you. That's what it comes off. If somebody's like, I'm thinking of divorce, it doesn't give the feeling of we have both been at odds and there's been mutual things that haven't been aligning and we both need to work. It doesn't give a we feeling when somebody says like, I'm thinking of divorce. It feels like something's wrong with what you're doing, and then I want to divorce you. So I feel like it could feed, just saying that word can be distracting and feeding into the narrative of you're still not doing everything you need to do, versus like, we know what happens if this relationship doesn't work necessarily, or what it could happen. But I don't know, just personally for me, like that certain words, it's like, once you introduce that, it could just distract from the whole concept, because there's certain stigmas around certain language that could happen, that people take away from
all
it.
Things are possible. It could. You said it could.
Yeah.
I gave a full context of, I'm thinking about this. However, I don't want my relationship to end. I want my marriage to work out. So I hear you. We have difference of opinion. That's totally okay. But yeah, it's in a distressful place, and I don't think you should be picking up and leaving your household to enter into active duty while your relationship is in the status that it's in. I think, depending on whenever you're supposed to be deployed, you are in a dangerous place in your marriage right now, for sure. And leaving the marriage to go work is also potentially a dangerous territory, because now you're physically away from the person. It could actually be a good thing, but it, to me, could be a bad thing. So I think it's time for some tough conversations with the right tone.
And I guarantee you guys need therapy. Like, you need somebody to translate what you guys are saying, because even in the language, I just feel not necessarily selfish, but I feel like you're more in the mindset of how you feel and what you want. Like you said, I don't want to be a Cherokee case no more. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And he's like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. Yeah. And there's not a lot of we together, us, our, it's not a lot of those terms being used, or that conversation I feel like is happening in the relationship.
It doesn't sound like a cohesive relationship.
Not
it didn't sound like
one
pre-marriage.
Yeah.
I'm just a little surprised that you got married 4 months ago.
For the benefits.
For the benefit of the thing. Well, Deployed Divorcee, thank you for writing in. We hope we were able to help you. Please give us an update, but wishing that the very, very, very best scenario comes out of this, no matter what that is, that it works out for you and him and your children. But if you want to write into us, go to relationshiprestore.com, click the contact button, and you can also follow us on social. I'm at Ronnie K.
As Dre Smith.
And at Relationship Restored. Bye.
Peace.